We turn our attention to high school sports now. And here to tell us and guarantee there's going to be a high school football season that's going to start on time and that he's going to win a fifth straight championship. No, I'm just kidding. No guarantees, but hopeful that all this will take place is a good and great friend who does a tremendous job at Karr High School, Brice Brown. Brice, it's great to have you with us. I hope you're well in these unusual times, my friend.
How y'all doing?
Doing good.
Just hanging in there.
All we could do for right now.
Well, you've got a chance to get kids back on campus and work with them once you got to phase 2 and some numbers anyway in different pods. What has that experience been like?
Well, I tell you the biggest has been the small groups. Not having a lot of team building stuff, but a lot of guys working with their position coaches and just try to keep the numbers down as we can as far as how many kids we can work out at one time in the past where we'll have large number of groups and big condition practices outside, but we haven't been able to do that.
Well, your friend Ed Daniels is here as well, and I know Ed wants to say hi and talk to you as well. Ed?
Coach, what do you think of starting the season late? How concerned are you about that?
Well, as the cases rise, it's starting to be a little bit more concerning because we know as the cases rise, it's going to push back our season more and more. So I think, it's creating a lot of anxiety with the kids. Are they going to play? Are they not going to play? So, I think it's no right or wrong answer with it, but you can tell it sits on the kids' mind because every day they asking, Coach, are we playing? Are we playing? Are we playing? And you just can't give them a straight answer because we just don't know yet.
Well, the thing that really has to be understood is that the LHS CA wants to see it happen. They're doing everything to try to make it happen. So is the LHS CA, and I'm grateful that they've taken that approach. But when you get right down to it, Brice, it really is all about the state mandates and where we are in terms of the phases. And we talk about these phases all the time. We're in phase 2 right now. You can't play a football game in phase 2. You really need to improve that by really 2 levels if this is going to happen. So no matter how much we talk about it, no matter how much we want it, it really is contingent upon what the state rules and regulations are, correct?
Correct. We've received not a lot of notices, that just what you're saying is depending on the state mandates and the phases that we're in. So, we're just sitting tight and holding on. So, but we still have to keep preparing as if we're going to play. Until we're told we're not.
Ed said, what about the spring, Brice? Are you opposed to going to the spring at all, or would you think that you have to keep it where it is to have a real football season?
I'm guessing that's their last resort is to play in the spring. But if it did come to that, I wouldn't be opposed to it as long as these seniors get a chance to play. It'll be different because then you'll be questioning, okay, how is the 2021 season going to look? Are they going to play 2 seasons in 1 year? That's going to be the big questions that's ahead of that. So I think it's no right or wrong answer again, but, if they did push it to the spring, I wouldn't be opposed to it as long as the guys get a chance to play some form or fashion of football.
Coach, if it started in October and ended in December, and you played like a condensed season, like 6 or 7 regular season games, and then the playoffs, how would you feel about that?
I would be okay with that. And as long as it's done right. So you're saying, like, if we played just district games and then just jump right into the playoffs. So I guess, I'm guessing that's what a lot of these colleges are going to do. So, it's a copycat thing with football. So a lot of these things are going to be subjected to what the NFL does, what college does, and then that's when high school can make their answers. Their season match what we try to do, and trying to play in the dome and playoffs. A lot of this stuff is just up in the air right now.
Visiting with Brice Brown of Karr High School and talking about high school sports. Before we get into your team and other issues, Karr High School is undergoing a renaissance right now. Talk a little bit about that and what it means to have something brand new, Brice.
Well, yeah, it's been crazy because football is the only thing at the old school as of now. The new school, they're moving into the new school right now, so athletics haven't started over there. They're building a new field. They built 2 gyms. It's an amazing facility. But we're the only ones that's at the old school, so it's a bit different. But, the kids are excited, especially the new locker room, the new weight room, all of the stuff that Inspired Nola has invested in with building that new great facility with the new Edna Karr. So we're excited about it. So we'll see how it turns out.
Coach, how do you distance your guys? Let's say that you play a game. What do you do in the locker room before the game? What do you do on the sideline?
Ooh, that's something that has to be brainstormed. I've been thinking about some ideas as far as getting dressed for the games, getting dressed in the gym, where it's open and it's widespread, splitting offense and defense where they get dressed. On the sideline, we're gonna have to think about traveling a smaller number of guys. We usually dress 80 to 85 guys per game, so I'm guessing that mandate is gonna come out soon that you can't dress that many. So we're just trying to work that out with our roster and our depth charts and try to keep them spread out as possible. I think that's going to be the biggest part is on the sideline with the coaches and the players all condensed on smaller sidelines. Tag-only, you wouldn't have a problem doing it, but a stadium like Birmingham, you would have a problem with that.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Trying to figure some stuff out.
Yeah, and Coach, the bottom line is, though, as much as you separate coaches and as much as you separate players, at the end of the day, they're still going to be on the field tackling each other.
Yeah.
It seems like it seems like a little bit of a contradiction. We got to keep everybody apart. And look, I understand from a safety standpoint what's being done, but eventually you've got to play the games, and you're going to have guys, 22 players on every play in very close contact. I don't know how that's manageable. Do you?
Yeah, I think that's been some of the questions I've been asked. How we're gonna mandate. How we're gonna watch that and monitor that. And it is no monitor that because at the end of the day, when somebody has the ball, he's gonna get tackled. And if an offensive lineman or defensive lineman goes one-on-one and block each other, try to share the block, they're going to come in contact with each other. But the kids are going to school. They're going to be in the same classroom together in these classrooms all day. So what is really the difference with them sitting in a classroom, being around each other all day, and being with football or sports or athletics all day as well?
Well, and I agree with that premise, and I'll take it a step further. Richard Sherman, I'm not necessarily going to tell you I agree with everything he says, but I certainly agree with what he said yesterday about the NFL does it again. They prohibit jersey exchanges after a game. You just played a 60-minute football game where you've been all over each other, and you're going to prohibit a jersey exchange, or you're worried about a jersey exchange. Seriously? Come on. But look, I've thought about a whole bunch of things. I've heard it all discussed. Visors placed on every helmet, which is a shield. Mouthpieces are already in place, which, of course, is a shield from exporting things from your body to someone else. Gloves required for everyone. Spacing on the sideline. The number of people at dress is capped, as you mentioned. And even I've heard humidifiers on the sidelines as well to really regulate air. I've heard all of this, and a lot of it makes sense. And in the final analysis, the question is, can it be done? But you brought up another point, too. What about fans in the stands. At Tad Gormley, when you got 23,000 seats, no issues at all. If you're talking about Tulane, where games have been played with 24,000 seats, no issues at all. If you're talking about Memorial in Baton Rouge with 16,000 seats or so, no issues at all. But when you're talking about campus facilities, or even Berman Stadium, as an example, it could be an issue when it comes to the numbers and the spacing, right?
Yeah, we've been told maybe no fans, maybe only each kid would have only 2 parents at the game. But how do you regulate that? How do you know which parent is with which kid? Who's going to keep control of that? You know, a lot of questions is with all of the regulations. You're going to have monitors monitoring the regulations. So you're still adding people to the amount of people at the stadium. So, you know, it's just, can people afford that? Can people afford to play at Tad Gormley, or a bigger stadium is, or Memorial? You know, those smaller schools in Baton Rouge, can they afford it? Is it affordable to put a visor on every face mask? You know, because those things are expensive. You know, that's it. The next thing is going to be the cost of how it's done, and I think that's the next issue. Once everything has been said and done, is it going to be affordable?
I mean, look, Coach, if you don't have any people in the stands and you're playing at Gormley, then my guess, with all the expenses that go into a place like that, it's got to be in the area of $6,000. Am I right?
Correct.
So where is that $6,000 coming from, Coach?
Yeah, because if you don't put the people in the stands, then you don't make the money with the referees, ambulance, stadium rentals, you know, stuff like that. You know, it's a lot of cost to put on a high school game. But if we're being asked to do humidifiers and stuff like that, you know, we're going to have another cost. So the cost is going to be, is it affordable for every school? Some schools can afford it, some schools can't. So what are the schools that can't afford it? What are they going to do?
Yeah, what I would suggest is that benefactors who are wealthy, that have the ability for the greater good for 1 year in the short term, would fund having several humidifiers available for facilities, which I know would be a lot of stadiums, but it would be, you know, the cost of those isn't extraneous to the point of ridiculousness. So it's just a thought, but then again, for the greater good, that's really where we're at in society right now. I think there are people that are willing to probably accomplish things for the greater good, because we're at that point in time in our discussions and in our lives where I think we all want to see the greater good. I know I do, and so does Ed, and I know you do.
There's a way.
Yeah. I just hope these kids get a chance to play, even if it's like Mr. D saying, with a 6 or 7 game season, and then we can go to the playoffs. If it's in the spring, either route will be fine with me, as long as the guys get to go out as seniors. Because one thing that people aren't talking about, in the NCAA, if they don't get to play, they get another year. The NCAA can grant them another year. In high school, that's not going to happen.
That's true. You know, Coach, what's really weird, I've been sitting home during this unscheduled event after heart surgery, and I've been sitting home and I've been watching a few games. And I watched an English Premier League soccer game, and it was really a hotly contested game. And it would have been fantastic if it would have been played in front of 40 or 50,000 fans. But there was no one there, and they had to pipe in, you know, the ambient crowd noise. And I think that you don't realize how much the fans mean to a game until you don't have them.
Yeah.
Because it was a totally different experience, completely. And I was like, man, this isn't nearly as much fun as it should be.
Yeah. So I think the question people have to ask, is it worth playing without fans, or is it worth just doing it for the kids? And a lot of people I've talked to have different opinions on it. So, you know, again, it's not a right or a wrong answer. It's just, it's going to be different. I think this is the new norm that we're living with now. You know, I don't think this stuff is going away too much soon. It's not going away anytime soon. So I think we have to just adapt to, you know, just working out with smaller groups. If it's working out with if it's playing with half the crowd, if it's not being allowed to have as many contact practices, you know, I've heard it all. So it's just, we're just waiting, and we hope that people make the right decision. You know, even the stuff that Mr. Cleo Fields put out, even, you know, just take the time to think about the other side of things, except for what you value. Just look at it full circle, because it's going to affect people either way. If you don't play, it's going to affect somebody. If you play, it's going to affect somebody. So I would just ask that people look at it full circle.
Oh, look, I'm 100% with you, and I've got personally nothing against Cleo Fields, but as I wrote, he was, with all due respect, out of his playing field. The Bessie board doesn't decide any of that. This is all on the LHSAA and their decision-making process in conjunction with the state of Louisiana and its mandates regarding what phase we're in. So no disrespect to him. And let me make this very clear. No one has said there's absolutely going to be a high school athletic season. No one said that. What has been said continuously by the LHSAA, the LHS CA, by people like Ed and I, by coaches we've had on frequently, is that we all want to see it happen. We all hope to see it happen. We all are encouraging it to happen, but only if it's safe enough to do so. What's wrong with advocating doing something that's great for kids if it's safe enough to do it? That's all I'm saying, and I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, and I think people when they talk about playing football this season, I think people are getting caught in just football, the word football, just playing a game. Football provides these kids with something more than just football. It gives them discipline, it gives them accountability, it gives them everything. It teaches them life lessons. So, you know, we saw a big difference in the kids when we were away from them for 3 months and getting them back, and, you know, how they missed being around their teammates and learning different stuff, not only about themselves but about each other. So it keeps the kids out of trouble. It just isn't about the ball. It's about everything that's associated with football that people are advocating for. Because if these kids are just sitting at home doing absolutely nothing, they're going to find something to do. They're going to go do it anyway. So we might as well come up with something that's safe and secure and give them a sense of hope that soon they'll come to some normalcy.
Well, Coach, I've heard so many people advocate for online learning. And I know that's a lot of things that people have had to do, including football programs with online learning as far as Zoom classes and all of that stuff. But to me, the one thing I think this whole situation since March has reinforced is the importance of being there with your teacher or being there with your coach and getting instant, immediate instruction. I think that's one of the things that we've learned from this, don't you think?
Oh, it's a huge thing we've learned from it, that the interaction between people has not only been overlooked, but it's been underappreciated. I think, I think it gives parents a sense of appreciation about what teachers go through every day, teaching their kids, because they had to become teachers at home and know what teachers go through, teaching instruction to teachers day in and day out. To students day in and day out. Same thing as far as coaches. It's so simple to teach a wide receiver in person, but when you have to teach them on a Zoom call, can you really teach them how to play wide receiver? It's very different. The interaction and the socializing part is really been eliminated. So it's been different.
Brice, looking at your football team, we got about 4 or 5 minutes left with Brice Brown. A lot of people think you'll have a better team this year than you had last year. And I know you have to replace a quarterback. You have to replace some other good players. But, of course, you have Destin Payson on the outside. You've also got a guy that I was impressed with, Aaron Anderson, a year ago. You got Edwin Joseph on the outside. You got, as I see it, an entire offensive line back from a year ago. You got a guy, Keith Maroney, who was really good last year in the backfield. And Newman was solid when he got the opportunity as well. On your defense, Gibson being back, Morgan, another guy, Remble and Refuge, just to name a few. What about your team this year? I think it's a pretty good-looking team.
Yeah, this is really a veteran team. And, to speak on some stuff that happened in the past, they were saying that we were, practicing and stuff like that. But that was a big reason that we didn't. We didn't have to, is because we knew we had a veteran team coming back. There was no need for us to violate any rules or something like that. But, we returned almost every start on offense. We returned 7 on defense. So I think, this would be one of our better teams. But playing a tough schedule again, if we get to play the full schedule, it's still going to be a tough schedule, adding American Heritage to the schedule. But I think it'll be even better for this team because they're used to playing in tough games and tough situations. So I think the better the opponent, the better that your team is going to be in the playoffs and in making that run to go to state again. So, that's why we really just took our time, even coming back when we were able to practice on June 8th. We just took our time and went back to basic stuff, lifting weights, and started off jogging before we started sprinting. We just started all over again. So, it's going to be fun to watch this team play, especially offensively. Defensively, we got some new faces, and we still got some things to plug together. But offensively, it should be real exciting.
Coach, has this been the most challenging year you've ever had in coaching?
It's been challenging and different. It's been challenging because, with other great programs around the state, everybody has their own team, their own daily process in which they go through, and then when that process is stopped, and when that progress is stopped, then we get off calendar. It's a little different. At this point, we're supposed to be doing this. At this point, we're supposed to be doing that. So I think that's been the major hurdle that you're so used to doing what's on that paper. Then when something like this happens, and said, listen, no, that's it. That's do something else. So we have to really adapt to what we're living in now, and get away from our normal and create a new normal. So I think that's been the most challenging part, getting it back on schedule. How the kids are entering, leaving, washing their hands, temperature checks, and stuff like that. So that's been the difficult part. It was to organize all of that and put it on paper, and then put it in live action. So I think that's been the most difficult part.
Final couple of minutes with Brice Brown. Of course, Karr High School with Coach Watney, who we lost very recently, Grambling, a legendary program, and then coming back to be a coach at Karr, dealing with the social issues we're dealing with right now. What about your lifetime and what you've endured? How difficult has it been? Did you experience discrimination? And how do you try to mentor young men now in dealing with the changing world we live in?
I think that's the key word, the changing world that we're in. It changes every day. Discrimination happens. If it's white to black, if it's black to white, it comes in such big forms that it's not something that we control from somebody else, but it's something that we can control within ourselves and how we treat people and how we treat others. I would say this, not speaking on discrimination or racism that I've been through, but I would also add that, as far as black and white, I was coached by a white coach. I was coached by a black coach, and Coach Luke and Coach Wiley. I would tell you, totally that both men had the same values, had the same beliefs, had the same love for their players. It didn't matter what color skin it was. It was about the caring of a person and not the color of their skin. And that's what's been good for us at Karr, that we've had both. We've been on both sides of the aisle. So we don't judge the color of our skin. It's all about how we treat people and how we treat ourselves first, and what's our values, what's our morals, what's our principles. And I think that's what we need to start teaching these kids nowadays is to treat each other with more respect and treat each other with more dignity and having more pride in ourselves to look at people for who they truly are.
Yep, and it's going to be strange not seeing Coach Watt on your sideline. I mean, that's going to be really unusual.
Yep. Every home game that right down the track. His daughter will bring him to the game, and he was there with Coach Dennis, Coach Rock while back, and talk, and we'll have our minute before the game, and it's gonna be different without having him here. But the blessing with him being involved in our lives. Where most of our staff played under Coach Watt, and I think at the field it showed how much people really care about all the former players that we got to see, and the old players, the new players. Everybody appreciated him and how he started at the football. He's going to be missed.
Yep. Karr Cougars represent everything that's been right about high school athletics, and that applies to Taurus as well and the entire program. Brice, listen, we appreciate the time. Keep up the great work. Persevere and keep sawing wood, and we're all hopeful that these young people, not just football, but volleyball and basketball and softball and baseball and track and field and cross country and soccer and wrestling, and they all get an opportunity to compete because, as you mentioned, they don't get these years back. There's no red shirt. We hope and pray they get the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you guys, and y'all be safe.
You got it, buddy.
Coach,
Thank you,
buddy.
Brice.